You're now enrolled in the School of BlackNegroJitsu. Is it your first day? Don't worry, the master, Leroy Stephan, and his co-instructors Dave, Mike, and Kyle will take it easy on you, rookie. Enroll in the School of BlackNegroJitsu right now. It's free. All you have to do. There's no hidden costs, no hidden fees. Hit that subscribe button on whatever platform you're on. iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play. Hit subscribe, get enrolled, and you'll get completely free access to all of our classes. That's the School of BlackNegroJitsu. That's our main mixed martial arts class. Then we also have our two fantasy classes, the MMA Edge Fantasy Podcast and Black Market Picks. And we also have other offerings at the school, interviews, other random things. Enroll now. It's free, guys. Welcome to the School of BlackNegroJitsu Class 22. What it do? I'm your host, the master of BlackNegroJitsu, and today I'm solo dolo. This is a solo dolo edition. No Dave, no Mike, no Kyle. It's just me, the master, you, the students, and another top flight class at the School of BlackNegroJitsu. What do we have on tap today? We've got a very candid, well, I don't know if it's candid, but I was very happy to have Nick Newell, the Notorious Nick Newell, on our podcast. Interviewed him. One of the hottest stories in mixed martial arts right now. If you don't know who he is he's he's got a disability in that he's only really got one arm. Well, 1.5 arms. That being said, he's still a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He still had a collegiate wrestling background, and he is one of the better fighters in the world right now. He is a world-class talent. We talked to him about his prospects for getting in the UFC, how he deals with his disability, his martial arts background, how he's overcome his disability to get to like being a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. How do you do that with just one arm? Quite amazing. I really enjoyed talking to Nick Newell. We'll talk more about that later. We're going to run down UFC Fight Night 127. Not a lot of names on the card, but I thought it was a very quality card. A lot of underdog upsets, but who's really an underdog when it comes to prospect fights? We had a main event that looked like it was, looked like it was a waste of time, or looked like, this is exactly what we expected. Then a huge turn of events occurred at the end. I think it was overall a really quality card. And then I'm also going to go through all the hottest news. Not a very big news week this week, but we're going to do that too and get to the news and run that down as well. That being said, let me go ahead myself and run down this UFC Fight Night 127 card. Like I said, not a lot of huge names, but hell, I think that the fights were definitely exciting, and we had plenty of finishes. First off, we had Dmitry Sosnovsky finish off Mark Godbeer. Did not look very impressive. He had not fought in 3 years, though. That's Sosnovsky. I did like what I saw from him in a way, but I don't know. I don't know what his prospects for the UFC are. His wrestling isn't that good. His striking isn't that great. In matchups like this against a guy like Mark Godbeer, I'm sure he'll have success. But against the better heavyweights in the division, nah, I don't see it. Not right now. Great athlete, but lots of work to do down there at American Top Team. Cajun Johnson continues to be on a roll. He is going to, I think he's going to do great things in the future. I think he's got that special mojo right now. He was able to pull out a split decision as an underdog over Stevie Ray. I don't know if it was necessarily that impressive a win, but Cajun Johnson's fight style is just not that overwhelming. He does things on a high level. He gets the job done. And, it's not the most exciting thing, but, hey, Cajun, that's 2 in a row for him. Next up, we've got Paul Craig going up against Magomed Ankalaev. And in the most pitiful thing I've seen in mixed martial arts history, Ankalaev dominates the whole fight. He dominates the whole fight from start to finish. There's rarely a moment where he's not in control. We got 10 seconds left. You hear the clacker. Paul Craig throws up a Hail Mary triangle after losing undoubtedly every round of the fight, and Ankalaev taps with 1 second left. Ankalaev is submitted at 4:59 of the third round. The most, I don't like to disrespect fighters, but that's the most wimp ass shit I've ever seen in my life. Ankalaev is a tough guy. He's an elite grappler. And instead of going out there with just a second left, he wins the fight if he doesn't tap. He goes ahead and taps out. And yeah, man, that's the most pitiful shit I've ever seen in my life. No disrespect to Ankalaev, but you got to do better than that, brother. Maybe he didn't hear the clacker, but he had to. He just had to. I mean, he was on top. He was in control. The clacker sounds. The triangle gets thrown up, and he taps with 1 second left. One of the most disgusting displays of a lack of heart and perseverance that I have ever seen in the octagon by Ankalaev. Makes me have a lot of doubts about his future. On the other hand, for Paul Craig, got to give him props. He never gave up, man. He lost all of that fight just about. He had his moments, but damn, he pulled it out in the end. Big ups to Paul Craig. Next fight up, we got Danny Henry, who caught Hakeem Dawodu, finished him with a guillotine choke. Danny Henry doesn't look like a lot when you look at him as far as the eyeball test goes, but man, he's got that special mojo, man. He's coming in here and he's weathering the storm. He didn't even weather the storm here. He caught Dawodu, finished him, and that's super impressive, man. Danny Henry probably has a bright future. He's going to continue to get better. He's young, and he's winning these fights that we don't think he will. You gotta look at that and really count that a lot as far as his character, heart, and mind state go. Next up, Danny Hot Chocolate Roberts knocks out Oliver Enkamp. Man, I was surprised. Danny Roberts isn't the knockout type of a guy that I know of, but he looked good here. He caught Enkamp and put him away. Good for Hot Chocolate. He looked very good. Got a win in front of the hometown fans over there in Liverpool, England. And yeah, man, good for him. We got Charles Byrd choking out John Phillips. I thought John Phillips was going to do well here. I thought he was the better striker. I thought that he had worked on his grappling game and shored that up, but Charles Byrd exposed him for what he is. He's a powerful striker with a deplorable ground game. Charles Byrd went in there, snatched up the rear naked choke. I didn't believe in Byrd too much. I didn't think his wrestling was on that level, and I thought Phillips knew what it was. People know him by his power. They're going to try and take him down, and obviously he didn't prepare well enough. Very disappointed in the white Mike Tyson. Got to do better with the takedown defense than that. Leon Edwards TKOs Peter Sabata in the third round. Good for Leon Edwards. Impressive performance there. I don't know why he's relying on his wrestling so much these days, but Leon Edwards continues to be on a roll. I don't know, what does Leon Edwards have to do to be elite? Just got to keep improving, I guess. I'm very impressed by what I've seen from Leon Edwards. He's on a nice winning streak here. He's taken out a lot of tough fighters, and he's left a great impression on me. Next up, we had Tom Duquesnoy versus Terrion Ware, and School of BlackNegroJitsu alumni Terrion Ware. Man, I thought Terrion Ware won that fight. He definitely won the third round. Rounds 1 and 2 are close, but man, I think you got to give him one of those rounds too. He did the most damage. He had the biggest moments in the fight, the most takedowns. The statistics were definitely on his side. He outlanded Tom Duquesnoy by 30 or 40 significant strikes. Got the only takedowns of the fight. Man, I thought Terrion Ware won that fight. I don't think there was any question about it. Tom Duquesnoy it's a tough fight. But they need to quit giving Duquesnoy tough fights, man. He's promising. He's got a lot of technical ability, but he needs more polish. And until he gets more polish, stop putting him in these spots with these tough fighters like Terrion Ware. Terrion Ware fought 2 fighters that were better than Tom Duquesnoy and looked good in those. And he looked good in this, and I thought he won. But he was robbed. And I'm very disappointed in that. I mean, it was a close fight. I guess you could give it to Duquesnoy, but I just don't see how you do. I really don't. I mean, what did Duquesnoy do there? The numbers don't lie. Terrion Ware deserved to get the win there. I guess this is the end of his UFC run, but that being said, he should do awesome on the regional scene, as he is absolutely a top-level fighter and he belongs in the UFC. In the fight of the night, we had Jan Blachowicz versus Jimmy Manuwa 2, and Jan Blachowicz avenges his first loss, almost finishing Manuwa in the first round with a very impressive victory. I don't know what's going on with Blachowicz, but man, has he looked good lately. He's more active with his strikes. His grappling is better than ever before. Jan Blachowicz looks like a top line fighter at this point. I'm loving the form I see on him. And last but not least, Alexander Volkov puts Fabricio Werdum away in the 4th round. I would say, Fabricio, he got Volkov to the ground I guess in every round. I think he might even got him around ground in that 4th round too, and he wasn't able to finish. I didn't see him attempt one submission. He wasn't passing guard very well. I mean, he's a top level grappler, and he didn't look it. I mean, if you can't bust up Alexander Volkov's guard, whose can you? I don't know. But Fabricio Werdum played around too much. I thought Volkov was the more dangerous and more powerful striker. And Volkov got a chance and put Fabricio Werdum away in that 4th round. Very impressive by Volkov. Not to take anything away from him, but if Fabricio Werdum gets somebody to the ground, he should be released for 3 straight rounds. Like, that doesn't make any sense for one of the most decorated grapplers in UFC heavyweight division history, or UFC history and all, to be struggling with a guy like Alexander Volkov. Let's get on to some news here. ACB League. Now that we're done with that Liverpool card. Well, no, let me get to this first. Darren Till is going to be headlining the next card that goes on in Liverpool. I think that's going to be taking place in May. Hold on, let me look real quick. Is it May? And they don't know who he'll be facing yet, but Darren Till is definitely going to be in the main event of that card. And I'm looking forward to it. I wish they had an opponent for Darren Till, but that being said, Darren Till has a lot of promise. I hope he doesn't fight Wonder Boy. I know he wants to fight Wonder Boy, and he wants to take on all comers. But hold that off, UFC. Hold it off. That's the May 27th Liverpool card. Let's hold it off. Let's continue to develop him. Continue to give him winnable fights, and then in a little while we'll do the big matchups like that. But for now, let's hold off on the Wonder Boys and the Jorge Masvidals and the guys like that of the world, and let's promote this great English champion, this great English talent that we have here in Darren Till. In other news, we've got Marcin. But let me get a UFC props. The way that they announced the fight, with the video and everything like that, and the fact that the card is revolving around him, that's how you do it. That's how you promote a fighter. That's how you use nationalism. Very good for that. That they did it in front of his hometown people. Dan Hardy was there to pick up the announcement. I was very impressed by that. I like that. They need to do that more when they go to these different countries. Make sure that we're promoting the big stars from those countries and getting everybody on that side of the pond excited about what's going on there. Marcin Held is going to be going into his fight against Marcin Held just signed with ACB. ACB, very impressive Absolute Combat recruit. They have been signing up, scooping up talent left and right. Albert Tumanov fights over there, and a bunch of other guys too. They got a great talent roster, but he just signed with ACB. His UFC run was, I'd say it was, I wouldn't say it was, it's definitely disappointing, but they probably shouldn't have put him in the positions that they did. I mean, they put him in there against Diego Sanchez. That was a horrible idea. He won the fight against Joe Lozon, undoubtedly, but was robbed in a decision. He was able to dominate Damir Hadzovic, was knocked out in the third round after attempting an Imanari roll. And he had a rocky performance against Nasrat Haqparast. So he should have been 2-2 in his UFC run, 2 legitimate losses, 2 wins that Damir Hadzovic caught him, made him 1-3. I think he's a top level grappler. He's got a lot of work he has to do though, man. You can't just take a guy like Marcin Held, who's an awesome talent, and just throw him in there and expect him to be a star. He's got star qualities, and he definitely could be a dominant champion, but you've got to let him develop. He's a very young man. He needs polish. He needs work. Maybe 10 fights or so. Then you start putting him in there against those grizzled veterans and those top of the line guys. Young guy like that, give him 3 or 4 years, 10 fights, then we throw him in there after everybody's getting excited about what they see. We start to give him to people and let him climb the ranks and do it the right way. But I think Marcin Held got too much too soon. He got a raw end of the deal, kind of. UFC is a tournament style promotion. They didn't take care of what I think is a gem of a talent, and now he's out of the UFC. So, good luck to Marcin Held. We could definitely see him back in the UFC, but I think the UFC definitely mishandled that deal. Tough Latin America talent Polo Reyes was just flagged by USADA, and so he's going to be sidelined for the rest of the near future here. He is I like Polo Reyes. Polo Reyes is he's an action fighter. He always gives us exciting fights, and looks like we're not going to be seeing any of him for a little while now. I'm pulling up the article now to see why that is, but we got another USADA victim. Hopefully it's not anything too serious. I like USADA. I think that it's good for the sport in a way, but I think the UFC, they need to, instead of letting USADA deal out the punishments, they should do that themselves, because USADA's punishments are way too nasty for fighters on this level. They're going to make mistakes sometimes. They might try and beat the system and fail, and then you lose a very promotable asset for very little reason. So I think that I like USADA sometimes, but man, I like seeing Polo Reyes fight. I like seeing John Jones fight, and when it's going to be 2 years or a year even before we can see him fight again over eating some bad meat or taking some dick pills or something else that young people tend to do sometimes. I think that's a ridiculous type of premise. That's just too stern of a punishment for too ridiculous of an action. I think that's all the relevant news for this week. Not a whole lot of relevant news this week. I guess we got a big card coming up here this weekend. Maybe I should preview that a little bit. Nah, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go ahead and run this Nick Newell interview, man. I'm not even going to hesitate. We had a very good talk, me and Nick Newell, about his life, his career. If you missed the first half of the show or whatever, where I was talking about Newell, he's a disabled fighter who only has one arm. When Dana White was asked about if we'll ever see him in the UFC, he talked about how people with 2 hands have problems in the UFC. So probably not. But looking at Nick Newell's video and looking at his record and his martial arts accomplishments, I believe that he's a UFC level talent. I believe that he deserves a shot. And I believe that he would be absolutely one of the most promotable stars that the UFC could possibly have in a sport that's kind of, watered down and the same. Everybody's wearing the same shorts and the same this and the same that. Nick Newell is absolutely a spectacle of a fighter. He's absolutely somebody people would tune in to see. He's a great story. He's an inspiration. And I think he deserves a shot, man. I think that Dana White, if he doesn't sign him, he's missing out. Bellator, ACB, they need to get on this guy. This is one of the greatest spectacles in all of sport. How he's fighting, not only fighting, but grappling with one arm. I mean, I get triangle choked sometimes and choked out with two arms. How do you possibly have such an elite submission game with one arm? So, Notorious Nick Newell, man, go check out his highlight reel. Just pause this podcast, Rick, real quick. Go check out his highlight reel on YouTube and then come back to the podcast and check this interview out. I'm sure you enjoy it. Check it out. Notorious Nick Newell. Welcome to the School of BlackNegroJitsu. It's excellent to have you here today. How you doing, sir?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on your program.
That is awesome, man. You are one of the hottest stories in all of mixed martial arts right now. For my fans and people who don't know Nick Newell, you have a bit of a disability there in that your arm is how would you describe this exactly? What happened there exactly?
I was just born like this. There's nothing
Okay.
There's nothing more to it. I've been like this my whole life. So I wouldn't know any other way. This is how I fight, this is how I am, and I'm okay with it.
Yeah, so Nick Newell, his arm is like missing at the elbow. That being said, he wrestled in high school, wrestled in college, and is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Now I have lots of questions, especially about the grappling. But where did you grew up in the is it the Connecticut area or Massachusetts area? Which one?
Well, that can be a little bit confusing, but born and raised in Connecticut, a town called Milford. It's it's like a small city, middle class, and there's not a ton of famous people or big names that come out of there, but we're definitely a tough little city, and I love it a lot there, actually, and I'm glad to have grown up in such a town.
And did you what college did you wrestle at? What level did you wrestle at? Division 1, 2, 3, NAIA?
So I was a Division III wrestler. I wrestled at Western New England. It was Western New England College then. It's Western New England University now, which was Division III at the time. I started wrestling in high school, and I was all state by my senior year. And I thought that, Division III, I wanted to wrestle in college, and they had the major that I wanted and what I was going for. So I went there.
Do you feel like sometimes being a state champion, I don't know what the prestige is of wrestling in, you grew up, so this is Connecticut, right? Not Massachusetts, so Connecticut, right?
Yeah, Connecticut.
Okay, so you wrestled in Connecticut, you're a state champion. Did you feel like the big colleges spurned you because of your disability, or do you think you would have gotten a major college offer, or how do you feel about how your recruiting went? Or do you feel like you got snubbed, or how do you feel about everything as far as your offers for wrestling, being a state champion, that is?
No, I was all state, so I finished out of all of Connecticut, I was number 4. So I mean, I don't think I was really at that level yet to wrestle Division I. I didn't think at the time I was good enough to warrant getting a scholarship. Even though, since I graduated 10 years ago, I've been wrestling the whole time. And, I'll go down and wrestle with Division I wrestlers all the time now that I'm older and I'm better at wrestling, but at the time, Division III was perfect for me.
Now, you said that you thought about quitting wrestling your first year doing it. Why was that? Was it just the grueling nature of the sport? What did you find so challenging about the sport at the beginning of your career there?
No, it was just like the first practice was it. I grew up playing sports my whole life. I played soccer and I played baseball. Obviously because Jim Abbott. I played a little basketball, and I did those sports, but I didn't really push myself at it. I didn't really push my body to the breaking point. And wrestling is a sport where people pride themselves on pushing harder, pushing as hard as you can. When you're tired, how hard can you push through? How deep can you dig? And I just wasn't prepared for that. I didn't even know what wrestling was when I joined. I was just watching WWE and wrestling with my friend, and he said he's going to join the wrestling team. So I joined the wrestling team, and I got my ass kicked. So I was like, what is up with this? I don't want to do this. Like, I'm not very good at it. And luckily, I stuck with it and stuck it out, and I ended up being very good at it.
So you're a huge. I forgot all about that. You're a huge pro wrestling fan, like I am. We're gonna talk about that a little bit. I might even save that for last because I got some questions about that for you there. But there is a Division I wrestler with one leg who was a champion, Anthony Robles. Have you ever met him before, or did you ever gain inspiration from him, or were you guys wrestling in college about the same time?
It was about the same time. He might be a little younger than me. But I mean, he was a stud. He was a national champion, Division I, and I'm a very good wrestler, and in MMA, my wrestling is 1,000 times better because I can set it up with my striking. So I feel like in MMA, I can literally take down anyone. It's not an issue. I'm a very high level MMA wrestler.
Oh no,
But
I've seen it. I've witnessed it. I wasn't
yeah,
expecting
but
that.
in sport wrestling, I always had a difficult time kind of setting up my shots. Once I was in, I could finish, but the setups to get there, I kind of got lost right there. And the one thing he did was he set up his takedowns really well, and that's what kind of separated him. I mean, obviously, seeing him do what he does was an inspiration, but to me, really, it's not an inspiration because of like, wow, he has one leg and he's still doing this. It's just the attitude that goes into it, and the hard work it takes to be an NCAA champion, and he did that. It doesn't surprise me when someone with a so-called disability or someone facing a challenge does something impressive, because I've seen it a million times already, and I know that it's possible. It's the work that they put in that impresses me. The stuff you don't see behind the scenes, the grind and everything that goes into that is more impressive than anything to me.
Now, grappling. I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and you're a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, sir. How long have you been rolling Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for?
I've been doing jiu-jitsu for about 13 years.
13.
And it took me, I've been wrestling 17, and it took me 9 years. I got a black belt in 9 years.
Okay, very interesting there. So you are a black belt after 9 years. Now I was watching you grapple and everything like that. What I would think that your arm would at times be a hindrance. Now it seems to be an advantage with chokes, but it would be a hindrance with like triangles and things where you have to get that, where having one arm in would be a detriment. Were there any challenges, in becoming Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, or is there anything you ever found hard about it, or is it just like wrestling?
Yeah, jiu-jitsu and wrestling have a lot of tie-ins together. I use my front headlock control that I learned in wrestling. That's one of the reasons why my guillotines are so tight, and my control is just top notch. One thing I did was, I just sat back and kind of took it as a student, try to use new things, try to learn new things, and push myself. I really don't face any major challenges that I see as a grappler. For a while I had a hard time kind of finishing north-south chokes, but something clicked, and now I'm good at that too. So I'm a pretty well-rounded grappler. I'm known for my chokes, but actually, my triangles are probably one of my best weapons. I finish people off my back, good grapplers with triangles all the time.
Oh no, I witnessed you. I was looking at video because I had heard about you and I didn't know what to expect. I'm sitting here and I'm seeing you choking everybody out and guillotine everybody. And I look at a video, you're Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and I say, this guy right here, he's more than just a spectacle. He's an elite martial artist here. Because I think when you see the headlines, they never talk about your background, really, your wrestling background, your jiu-jitsu. It's always just the spectacle of you being disabled versus the enabled fighter. But you are truly a top-level martial artist.
Thank you.
Yeah, but question. I was watching a video with Dana White. He was talking about it.
Okay, you don't even have to tell me.
Oh yeah, you already know about the video I'm talking about. He was talking about how
I remember seeing that video where Dana White, where TMZ asks him, what do you think about the fighter with one hand? He says it's hard enough fighting in the UFC with two hands, and that's basically it. It's whatever. He says a lot of things. And he retracts a lot of things. My job is to not worry about that. My job is to just keep winning fights and fight for whoever wants me to fight for them.
Now, do you think that it's necessary to, in my humble opinion, that the fight game is growing past the UFC, okay? Great fighters are what people want to see, and great, awesome attractions are what people want to see. It's not about the organization. Do you feel like you need the UFC even to make the kind of money you think? I mean, don't you think you could make as much or more in Ryzen or anywhere else, or do you want to compete? What's your goal? Do you want to compete in the UFC because it's the best organization in the world and you want to prove yourself, or would it suffice to have a Ben Askren type of career, make big money overseas, more money than you would make in the UFC, possibly as a premier fighter, and suffice maybe not to fight for the title of best fighter in the world, at least the way mixed martial arts exists now, because it's not like boxing where the commission puts together the best fighters in the world. It's the league is that everybody wants to go to the big league and fight there. But I think it's growing past that. How do you feel about the UFC and the overall spectrum of where you want to compete and how much money you want to make?
Yeah, I agree with that. Obviously money is a big motivator, but there's a lot of money to be made if I'm winning fights in the biggest league too. The highest paid guys fight there. For me, it's a competitive thing. I started my business. I run my own gym, and my gym's very successful. I make a good living off of that, and I'm just fighting for fun. I'm fighting because I enjoy it. I'm not bringing home millions of dollars. Maybe I'm making a little bit more money than everyone else on the card at LFA, but still, going out there and having fun is my main goal. If I didn't enjoy it, it wouldn't matter how much money I make. So for me to test myself is a big goal, but if someone were to come at me with a boatload of money, that might change my mind.
Yeah, because right now you're one of the, I think, one of the standout stories in mixed martial arts right now. It is absolutely captivating what you're doing. As a matter of fact, it reminds me a lot. You're a professional wrestling fan. You remember the Tenacious Z, Zach Gowen. You remember him?
Yeah.
Exactly. Zach Gowen, everybody thought he couldn't make it. And he was absolutely one of the most spectacular draws when he was hot. He fought against the top talent in the company and was one of the biggest superstars while he was there. I think that you have similar potential, as it is absolutely a spectacle to watch a master martial artist over, just like watching Anthony Robles. It's captivating. It's amazing to see. And I think you could be a huge draw. And I think that other organizations might pay you as much or more. And I don't even think the UFC, I don't think it's not a promotion, And I think, how old are you, sir? You 29, 30, 31? How old are you?
31.
31. So
my birthday's on Saturday, so I turned 32.
Okay, so you're still relatively young. I
got 4 more years. I got 4 more really good years in me before I start to fade.
So you could possibly spend a year over in Japan or something, have a couple fights, make some really great money, and then do that top league thing later. That's how I'm thinking about the fight game at this point, because the UFC isn't doing anybody any favors. I mean, they're not putting you in matchups that are promoted. They got a lot of talented fighters. Which one do they promote? They never put their fighters in fights that are going to build the hype, and then you can have a big super fight or whatever. All we see is a tough fight every out, and that's just not good for the money. I mean, that's why you see boxing doesn't do that. So I'm kind of down on the UFC as a promotion overall, and I would think I know every fighter wants to fight at the highest level, but I think the money is better in other places. Like I've talked to a lot of people that's fighting in Korea and fighting in Japan, and they're making as much or more than they're making over here,
Yeah, I mean, somebody come at me with that money, and then we'll talk.
Okay, so do you have a trajectory for or have you been has the UFC been in contact with you? Is there a timeline that maybe you'd like to get there, or are you just riding it out and just fighting and letting everything work itself out?
The second part. I'm just kind of taking it fight by fight and just kind of rolling with it.
Okay, all right. Now on to the topic of professional wrestling, the main event of the evening. Who have been your favorite wrestlers over the years? Let's say 80s, 90s, right, early 2000s right now. So last 4 decades, who are your favorite pro wrestlers?
So the best three that I can think of, the three that stood out most to me were Bret Hart.
That's my favorite wrestler of all time.
Yeah, he gave me his glasses one time.
Oh, really?
Yeah. When he was fighting Hunter Hearst Helmsley before Triple H was Triple H. Number 2 would be Kurt Angle.
Okay, Olympic gold medalist.
And phenomenal mic skills, phenomenal in-ring performer. Mm-hmm. And number 3 would be the Ultimate Warrior.
The Ultimate Warrior, okay. And so that's 80s, that's 90s, and that's
2000s.
2000s. What about right now? Who's your favorite wrestler right now?
I mean, I'm biased now because I have a few connections to some wrestlers. I've trained probably the past 10 years with a guy that was in the WWE, a guy named Antonio Thomas. He was on the Heartthrobs. Okay. I always support him. He's a good friend of mine, a good training partner. He's no longer in the game like he used to be, but he's a great guy, and he's a martial artist. So I'm partial to him. And then when I was in college, I was friends with Kurt Hawkins, and he lived with me for a year while we were in.
He's a part of Team Angle, wasn't he? Right?
No, he was on the Edgeheads.
Edgehead. Okay, my fault. I'm sorry. I knew it was one of those tag teams, so I'm so sorry. It's been so long.
Yeah, it's fine. He's still in. He's got like this losing streak thing going on, where like he's setting the record for most consecutive losses, which is kind of funny, like a cool little gimmick, and he's selling merchandise. So I'm following him. And then he used to chill with Zack Ryder. They grew up in the same area, so I'll always root for Zack Ryder as well.
I love Long Island Ice. He never got. He pushed himself, man, and Vince McMahon didn't want to use him because he wasn't his creation. That's the one. It's disgusting. That being said, what if Vince McMahon calls a Notorious Nick Newell up? What would you do?
I mean, my goal is not really. I have unfinished business as a mixed martial artist. I'd have to be able to do both, but if the money was good, you'd see me clotheslining fools. I love wrestling, but I'm not really too trained in it. Antonio showed me a few things and taught me a few tricks, but it's not really a goal of mine to be a professional wrestler. And honestly,
hope you guys enjoy that. Get my man in the UFC right now. He's absolutely one of the greatest fighters in the world, the Notorious Nick Newell. Absolutely could be one of the most well-known fighters in the world. Even if he's never a UFC champion, damn it, he's one of the best mixed martial artists in the world, bar none. He's an elite grappler, and this guy needs to be showcased to teach people the power and effectiveness of grappling and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I think that people would be shocked that a man with 1.5 arms could probably beat up most people in his weight class, definitely in the world. That's real. People don't believe it, though. That's a spectacle. Money's written all over it. If Dana White doesn't want to promote it, damn it, Scott Coker, get on it. Or whoever in the world. Somebody needs to promote this shit. It's money everywhere. People would want to pay to see it. It's amazing. It's spectacular. It's in the fight game now, everybody looks alike. They talk alike. You can't tell anybody apart. This is definitely something that sets Nick Newell apart. Even though it's a disability, it's probably been a pain in his ass for his whole life. It's definitely probably time to cash in on it, man. I think that he didn't have any interest of being, I guess, the next Zach Gowen in professional wrestling. I think that could work too. I think he's got probably the charisma and the presence and has trained pro wrestling to do that. He could definitely be a draw in the sport of mixed martial arts, and I think he will, man. Nick Newell, was glad to have him on. Wonderful story. But that does it for the School of Black Negro Jitsu this week. I was going to do the UFC 223 preview of Khabib and Tony Ferguson, but that isn't for 3 weeks. I thought it was this upcoming weekend. That is not the case. Khabib and Tony Ferguson will not face off for 3 more weeks, April 7th. And when they do, I will be at either Iron Fighting Alliance covering that fight, or I'll be at Titan FC covering that fight down in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I am not sure yet. So, yeah, man. No UFC 223 preview. I was kind of crossed up there when I first started doing this podcast, but we'll do it when we get closer to the fight. We should have a plethora of interviews coming up. We supposed to have Curtis Blades on. I got to go beat down his manager's door, or just ask him, your manager approved it, come on and do the show, man. Your manager is bullshit. It's Curtis Blades already agreed to do it, but he goes by his manager's schedule. I'm trying to get Danny Henry on, 2-0 in the UFC. I'm trying to get anybody I can get on. The guests are getting